So I have been getting asked this question quite a bit over on the main channel. Nick, do you care about XLM? Do you care about HBAR? Do you care about QNT? Do you even care about XDC anymore? And the main reason why is because obviously, yes, over on the main channel, I mainly talk about XRP. And for those that are new to this channel, or maybe you guys are coming over from the Encash official channel, for reference, yes, that channel I am mainly circulating around like XRP content. This channel is going to be for everything beyond XRP. Yes, I still will upload every now and again content on, other altcoins, and maybe, who knows, I'll change up the dynamic very soon. But the main thing is that like this channel is going to mainly be for altcoins, as you guys can see from the videos here. And yes, I know that I have been slacking with the time schedule. I am in the middle of just renovating the office a bit more. So, we are getting there. I know, slowly but surely. So I do apologize with that. But regardless of that, let's dive on in and let's actually talk about a few things. So let's go back to XLM, HBAR, QNT, and XDC. So in terms of like price action wise, like where are we at? Ultimately, for those that actually care about price action or anything like that, the main thing that I'm really kind of looking at is like, where are we going in terms of the market? And everyone still thinks that we have a long way to go until the bottom. XLM is one of those projects that is down heavily from the recent high, but if we are going off of like prior peaks in the market compared to like the major drops, like this was a 90% drop back here during like COVID. This was like about a 96% drop, so maybe like about 84%. If we had to drop down to bear market low again, 84% would make sense, but we're talking about sub 10 cents. Do we think that's going to happen again? It's questionable. I feel like the best thing to do right now in this market is just kind of hedge with a little bit of capital. In my opinion, I think that like the safest area would be about 15.5 cents. We might tap that yet again. But this is like anyone's guess at this point on where we can really kind of tap it here, now that we did have a nice little run up and now we're having a nice little sell off. Also, the DTCC does go live next month, so that's definitely going to be a big factor, and just kind of seeing how much that affects XLM or not. But yes, XLM is still very bullish. We'll talk about that. HBAR also still very bullish. I know that the price action is definitely rough here for HBAR, but it makes sense. I mean, listen, I have been talking about some of these altcoins and where they can go next. And, HBAR is one that I feel very confident about tapping about roughly around like the 6.5, lower 6 cent region. So that would make a lot of sense. And yes, there's still a lot of demand even around like roughly almost 7 cents, which, we're practically there anyways. So that's what I'm really kind of looking at right now with HBAR. And again, very similar to like our past cycle with HBAR, we're down about 82, almost 83%. Our last cycle, we dropped about 93%. So, dropping like 10% less would make sense. And I've talked about this even over on the main channel, that diminished returns and diminished drops are a thing. Makes a lot of sense from just like the market perspective on how the market is growing, how the market is treating these assets, and, so forth. But HBAR is also still very bullish. We'll talk about that. And then QNT, I mean, guys, do I even need to mention it? I mean, look at QNT's price chart. I mean, this thing has been pretty much stuck in this long wedge for so long, and it's still very bullish even today. Like, believe it or not, like a lot of people will look at this price chart and say that it's bearish, but the main thing I look at is like this thing has been squeezing since going all the way back as far as like 2022. And, we've been coiled up. We've been coiled up for a very long time. I think that when this thing breaks out, it's going to be an absolute shocker because of the supply narrative around it with the market cap. I mean, the upside potential. I mean, if we're talking about like from where we are at right now, I feel like a 10x is very safe. And I know that a 10x, like for most people now, is like crazy in crypto, even though that was like kind of the usual thing. But with an all-time high of roughly like, around $422 roughly, I feel like, tossing that to about $650 is not that crazy of a market cap. It would be about roughly a $9.7 billion market cap, almost a $10 billion market cap. And yeah, I think that that's a fair assessment. If we 10x that to 60 plus billion, or even possibly almost 100 billion, then we're talking about close to like Dogecoin back in 2021, which also makes a lot of sense. And that's up all the way to about $6,000+. But I would say a 10x would be the safest bet here. And it's a little bit more conservative compared to like, some other predictions I've seen with QNT. But QNT is still very bullish. We'll talk about that. And then last but not least, of course, XDC. So with XDC on the monthly view, we're back down to almost the 2024 lows. And this is where I feel very confident about just like accumulating more and just, kind of saving it on the sidelines. Coming back to it, because I feel like very similar to like other charts, like even XLM, for an example, every single time that we've kind of tapped back into like levels going all the way back to like 2020, we bottomed out and then we went on a crazy tear. I feel like this is kind of the same for XDC, where like XDC is pretty much flat and bottomed here. And I do think that this is going to be another one of those utility-based projects that kind of surprises a lot of people. The main thing about XDC that a lot of people don't like is just the supply side of things, but I don't think that's going to be a big concern, especially considering like what's happening right now around some of these projects. And we'll definitely talk about that. So let's actually start off by looking at tokenization, because, XLM, do I really need to even talk about XLM? I mean, XLM in and of itself is extremely bullish. Partnered up with DTCC. We talked about it on multiple occasions already on the channel. And on top of that, like look at the price chart or the chart of the value of tokenized assets here. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but like we're constantly seeing this value rising. We're at $2.4 billion in distributed asset value, up almost 9% in the last 30 days. Represent asset value, still kind of sitting around like 80 million. Stablecoin market cap up 30% in the last 30 days, almost $9 million. And then the stablecoin 30-day transfer volume, $3.75 billion roughly. And also RWA 30-day transfer volume is up almost 4%, almost $700 million. This is one of those networks that's seen absolute massive amounts of adoption. And it makes a lot of sense on why. I mean, this is one of those networks that's extremely viable for any sort of financial use case at scale, which is also why, we have a massive amount of stable coins here. I mean, look at the list of stable coins here, guys. This is crazy to me. There's a ton of euro-based stable coins. There is a ton of, other stable coins as well, like even Swiss franc stable coins. We also have MZAR stable coins, Australian digital dollar, Canadian dollar, Japanese yen. Like XLM is a completely different beast of a network. And I think that this is only going to continue to really kind of show its strength, especially considering the fact that like Stellar is very similar to like XRP in the way that it is viable for use cases at scale. And also with the amount of adoption Stellar has had from like the DTCC, Franklin Templeton, and so many other institutional players, I don't think that XLM is going to struggle at all. Then with Hedera, I mean, Hedera's tokenized value, I got to be honest with you guys, I'm a little bit disappointed with it. Like, I have been tracking every single Hedera tokenized move since roughly back in 2022. And, I just kind of expected a lot more. But who knows? Maybe there just isn't everything on chain just yet for Hedera. Maybe that would make sense. But I just wish that there was a little bit more. But that doesn't mean that Hedera sucks or anything like that. We're still very early in this game. And again, I kind of go back to like Hedera's website and I kind of look at everything that's been happening around Hedera, and they're constantly making a ton of noise. I keep saying like Hedera's probably one of the most active companies in the space with their major announcements. Like recently back on June 11th, they made an announcement with Archix to expand and advance tokenized securities with real-time streaming cash flows. This is just building on top of the, announcement with Archix going all the way back as far as like 2022. And yeah, I mean, like they constantly are pushing forward. And then also in terms of like dev activity, there's a ton of dev activity happening on Hedera. I mean, it's nearly at the same exact point where Ethereum is. It has been dropping down a little bit lately, but Hedera is still a dominant name in the game for, pretty much any use case. We've talked about it. It is one of the most viable networks out there for pretty much any use case that you could think of, AI, payments, whatever. Hedera has the efficiencies to back it. So Hedera is still a very strong project, great overall network, huge GC list. And yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing what Hedera can do next. Now, let's talk about XDC because, again, very similar to Hedera, XDC's tokenized value has been very lackluster. However, this is where things get a little bit different because, again, we know from CertiK that there is over $860 million in tokenized real-world credit, including debentures, receivables, and business loans that settle on XDC. Now, CertiK is, a major audit company. So this is something that I think everyone should be looking into because if we're thinking about that, that would put XDC in the top tier list around tokenized value. So XDC's tokenized value stands at about roughly 1.1 billion, roughly 4/5 of its real world assets. Almost all of that comes from two issuers, Leaky and also Vert Capital, which makes a lot of sense because Leaky did announce, I think it was 500 million, but now it's about 471 million across more than 1,800 instruments, which is definitely big. On top of that, Vert Capital adds another 390 million. And you can see the full breakdown here, but that's not what we're seeing on RWA.xyz, which is why I don't really take, I don't take the value that's listed on here for 100% certain. More so, I think that these audit companies are the ones that you should really kind of look into. So this is definitely a big deal because if we're thinking about 1.1 billion on, XDC, well, let's go back to the networks list. And if we're going off of RWA value, I would put it right at number 6 on the list. So XDC is doing tremendously well. And also they're constantly announcing more validators, more staking support, and just kind of pushing forward in the space. So yeah, XDC doing just fine. In fact, very bullish on XDC. And when the chart is looking like this, I feel even more bullish about it because it allows us to get in on the ground floor level yet again, going all the way back to like 2022. And then beyond that, let's go talk about QNT because again, QNT squeezing into macro wedge years and years and years now in terms of price action, just consolidate it. And QNT is one of those projects that just continues to be very boring. But if you are into the utility side of things, like it's very exciting because they just recently launched Quant Flow, which was programmable money for smarter financial systems. This is unlocking liquidity and efficiency pretty much based around any sort of network that you want to tap into. And it's all API driven. So it's plug and play. These institutional players do not need to rip and replace or anything like that, or hire, a ton of IT individuals or anything like that. So this is perfectly designed for corporates, banks, capital markets, and even treasury management. And yeah, Quant Flow is definitely a big piece of the quant puzzle. And if you're looking at all of their solutions, they're constantly adding more and more to their list. Like for an example, Fusion. And Fusion is providing that, pretty much one size fits all approach to institutional players ready to move on chain, but remain blocked by infrastructure that can't meet compliance, security, or integration standards. And basically what this is providing is a direct connection back to pretty much any sort of network in the space. And it's removing that fragmentation across all of these different blockchains. We know that it's not going to be a one size fits all approach. So in order to really kind of get that full on approach to the space, this is what Fusion is providing. It's providing that, if you want to tap into payments, tap into XRP. If you want to tap into tokenization, tap into Hedera. Like anything that they want to use these networks for, Quant Fusion provides. And that's basically Quant in, a nutshell. Like even if you look at Overledger, like Overledger was always that seamless connectivity between multiple blockchains. And I've always said that Quant is a game changer in the space. Like if you are bullish on XRP or on XLM or any network, you have to be bullish on Quant. That's why even when we think about like what's been happening around Quant with adoption in like the UK, I'm very excited for Quant because even over here from Chartner TA, we do have NatWest QNT, UK deposit or tokenized deposits, GBTD, running until mid-2026. We may hear some news on the development any day now as we approach the end of June. And yeah, Quant was selected to deliver infrastructure for the UK's tokenized sterling deposit project. And to build on top of that, we do know from Quant that today, and this is from June 25th, Gilbert Verdian joined a panel at the UKF Tweets Digital Innovation Summit on tokenization and also GBTD alongside representatives from Barclays, Lloyds Bank, and even NatWest Group. This is the world's first tokenized deposit payment system, built for industry by industry, an essential orchestration layer that gives every participant the ability to innovate, differentiate, and also compete. And if we're looking into this, yes, we do know that, Gilbert Verdian, right next to Lloyds, right next to Barclays, right next to NatWest, even the UK Finance, like They're talking about this. Like, it doesn't get much clearer than this. Like, these projects may seem boring, their price chart may seem rough, but we are seeing clear signs across the board that they are still in the game. They are still here. They're still making noise, and they're still very bullish even today. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely like, subscribe, so notifications on, because if you guys want more free content, you guys want to follow us on X, as well as join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, Nick, thanks for watching. Peace out, guys.